We'll be joined momentarily by a good friend of mine from across the pond. And we're going to be discussing the UK elections that are happening as we speak. The results are coming in, and actually we have them on the line now. Robert's Somynne. How's it going, man? First of all, thanks for joining me. I know it is super late where you are. What is it, like through 2:30 in the morning?
Yeah, you got me up late into the small early hours of the morning.
Hey, I appreciate it. We've been trying to connect for a while, and I just want to tell my audience about you. You're a political reporter on UK and Scottish affairs based in Edinburgh. You're a foreign policy writer and Gulf analysis. I really love to see your analyses that you put out, particularly on foreign affairs. And so you have a lot that you say that I listen to. So I'm glad to have you on the show. So thanks again.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, this is the show for progressives in the UK to learn about what's happening in the US. So
awesome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
That's what I like. We like to hear that. All right, so let's talk about. There seems to be, at least when I checked before I came in to prepare for the show, Theresa May is not getting what she hoped for when she called for the snap election. What's your first take on the exit polls and some of the actual results that are coming in?
Yeah. So I mean, the exit polls, obviously, it's a testy affair here in the UK because we had the Brexit polls, which told us that Remain was going to win by a slim margin. That was the referendum last summer to stay within the EU, for the UK to stay within the EU, and it turned out that actually people had voted to leave. Mm-hmm. We also had the debacle with the polling analysts in 2015 who said that it was going to be a Labour government, and it ended up being a Conservative majority. We call the Conservatives Tories here. Mm-hmm. So really that's the wider sort of context in terms of the numbers. I mean, we're seeing that the Labour Party could end up with 266 seats. Mm-hmm. They're still the second biggest party. But this is a disaster for the Tories, for the Conservative Party. Theresa May has gambled after months and months of saying that she didn't want to hold an election. She now decided that she did want to have an election. And that was really based on the entire political culture over here that said that Jeremy Corbyn was too left-wing, too Marxist, too much of a progressive, and that he couldn't be trusted on issues like national security. He would spend too much on the National Health Service, on public services, on policemen, on nurses, on firemen. And so she gambled. She gambled similar to the way that David Cameron, the former Prime Minister, gambled on the EU referendum. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it hasn't paid off. And really what you have is a Prime Minister that thought she would get away with a maybe 150-seat majority, now losing her overall majority. So the Conservatives would still have 314 seats in the House of Commons, but it would mean that they wouldn't be able to pass through laws with an overwhelming majority over all the other parties in the British Parliament. So it's an absolute disaster, and the sort of the game of a sort of gamble that the Tories have played has failed.
So she went in with a majority that didn't require a coalition government. She went in with over the 326 needed for the majority. And it looks like, at least according to the exit polls, and we'll give all the caveats that you just gave, the exit polls are just that. They're exit polls, and the actual results are still coming in. But based on the exit polls, they're only poised, like you said, to get about 314 seats. So she lost a net of 17 seats. So she went in to get more, an even larger majority, based on the fact that Jeremy Corbyn was ostensibly unpopular and ended up coming out with less. Before we go into any more detail, even if they maintain them, which they are, they're going to maintain at least a plurality and whatever kind of government they can pull together. Do you think Theresa May will be able to be the leader of that coalition government?
Oh, this is interesting, isn't it? I mean, you have a woman who portrayed an image of being a school mistress, and the British like that. We like strict women. Who she was restrained. She was a safe pair of hands compared to Boris Johnson, who the flamboyant now foreign secretary, who was the sort of bumbling public schoolboy from sort of the aristocracy. So she had crafted an image of stability, and she's been completely shown up in this election, where she's refused to first meet members of the public, she refused to do the TV debates. So her image of being this stable leader, this sort of low conservative leader, has been demolished, and it is tricky to see how she can continue. It's definitely plausible to think that she'll be gone at least by Christmas, because you have other rivals such as Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary. You have Michael Gove, who came over or went over to your side of the pond to interview Donald Trump for the Times.
Yeah.
You have Liam, who has dodgy dealings with Saudi intelligence services, as well as some Gulf money men. So there are a range of people who could come in and shunt her aside, and she has damaged the Tory brand.
Absolutely.
To face a leader such as Jeremy Corbyn, who has been castigated as too weak, as too left-wing, who was perceived to be leading the Labour Party to only have 100 seats and to lose 17 seats herself, there's no way she can possibly survive that.
Let's talk about Jeremy Corbyn and the possibility. All right, so there's like this slim possibility of him being able to form a minority government because of how the results, at least how the exit results are looking. We'll see before the end of the night over here. I think the sun will be coming up over there by the time we get a final answer. So let's talk about Jeremy Corbyn on two wavelengths. Like, what are the conversations going on over there? The reality or the possibility of the Labour Party actually being able to build a majority coalition?
Oh, well, this is where British politics gets exciting for the first time in a while. I mean, the possibilities are endless. There is a chance that the Scottish National Party, who themselves have gone through a tricky night losing seats up in Scotland, they possibly could form a sort of an informal agreement with Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, by which they supply a policy by policy support for law that goes through, because they're broadly similar in terms of being progressive. Of course, the thing that separates them is the issue of whether Scotland should remain in the UK or go its own way and stay within the European Union. So there's a possibility of a Labour SNP alliance. You have one Green MP, Caroline Lucas, who is very much loved by progressives in the UK. She would certainly be brought into the fold. You have some Northern Irish MPs from all kinds of hues, those who represent the Catholic community in Northern Ireland, those who are more on the Protestant side, those who are moderate. They'll be spoken to as well. They've been ignored during the British elections and the TV debates. So Corbyn's got a real chance to actually get on the phone by this morning and talk to a whole range of people. But the three options would be Labour and the SNP, Labour, the SNP and the Greens, or even the Liberal Democrats, a kind of liberal centrist, socially liberal party which tries to position itself within the middle of Labour and the Tories here. So there's an opportunity for what we would call a rainbow coalition government. But the problem is that on the face of it, these are all progressive parties, the SNP, the Liberal Democrats, the one Green MP and the Labour Party under Corbyn. But there are serious policy differences. The Liberal Democrats disagree with Corbyn on the issue of Brexit. They don't want to pull out of the European Union. They want another referendum. Corbyn comes from an old socialist school within the UK politics, which kind of sees the EU as just a slightly better version of sort of British neoliberalism, and he's not at all that fussed about staying within the European Union. So that could be a deal breaker. So Corbyn has a whole range of options there, but it really depends on getting on that phone and having serious conversations with people. So
this is like a major opportunity, right? And this is where I have to lean heavy on you, because I have no idea about the answer to the question I'm going to ask you. Do you think the opportunity to have Labour lead there to get a coalition with the Liberal Democrats, do you think that is strong enough for Corbyn to negotiate on a new referendum on the EU?
I don't think so. The commentary here is divided, because Brexit is one of those constitutional issues which has shaped the nature of politics in the UK. I'm not convinced, and I think my view is supported by UK researchers such as Matthew Goodwin, who sometimes does polling research for the New Statesman over there. He suggests that that hardcore Remain section of the electorate, hardcore pro-European section of the British public is just not big enough. I think there's a consensus within the Labour Party under Corbyn, either people in the Labour Party who are pro-Corbyn or a lot of the Labour Party who are actually stabbing him in the back and have done for the past year. They both actually have come to the conclusion of, look, Brexit's going to happen. We're going to leave. There's a clear majority of it, and actually there's a kind of small c conservative instinct within the British public which suggests that they just want to get on with it. They don't like sort of umming and ahhing over the issue. I can't see any coalition government, any coalition agreement being built on the idea of going back into the European Union. There would be a chance, however, of Corbyn making a concession to the Liberal Democrats, saying, I will go to Europe as Prime Minister of a minority coalition Labour government with the Lib Dems, and I will negotiate a set of terms for Brexit. So after we leave, I'll talk to Europe about what the trade agreements are going to be like, our interaction with defence, with the European Court of Human Rights, and then I'll bring another referendum to the people based on that deal. That's the only new referendum that could be brought forward.
Interesting. So Brexit, regardless, at this point, Brexit is going forward, and it's not really something that he can use to negotiate to form a coalition government over there.
I don't think so. I don't think so. It would be too problematic for Labour because you've still got the fact that a large section of voters in all parties want to leave. And that the problem with trying to build a coalition based on that is it would give the Conservatives a way back into the national debate, because the Conservatives could suggest that they are the one true party that wants to stand up for Britishness and wants to stand up against the European Union. So I don't think that Corbyn would take that risk at all.
That's I can see that opens an opportunity for them that the Conservatives would certainly seize upon. One last question for you, Robert. And I know that you've got a lot going on over there, and we'll get these results as we come in, and we'll be discussing it tonight throughout the night. Do you see the shift, the swing that happened today, or potentially happening, and we'll get the final results? Do you see this as a result of a move towards the left, or a referendum against Theresa May calling a snap election, or do you see it as some third phenomenon that I'm not considering at this point?
I'd be bold enough, very bold enough, to describe it as a move towards the left. But that has to be taken with a pinch of salt. I mean, the reason why Corbyn's, you could call it a victory. I mean, it's a loss, but it's the fact that he hasn't been destroyed like so many commentators, especially on the liberal centre, were so keen to see him lose in humiliating fashion, really reverses the trend we've seen for 40 years in this country. It's vital for British politics because it means that there's finally an alternative. In the UK, very similar to US politics in the sense of anyone who advocates for nationalisation of public services is deemed to be a Maoist. Anyone who suggests that privatising the NHS is maybe seen as cutting edge and entrepreneurial, and anyone who wants to hold towards vaguely soft left principles is demonised. We're starting to see the tide turn back towards a more social democratic, a new social democratic trend. So I think Corbyn does represent that, but we also have to watch out for the reaction of his party. You know, remember, Corbyn does represent a huge coming together of different sections of society, the enthusiasm of the young as well, who have come out in record numbers. That's something that has to be part of the record. But remember, a massive section of the Parliamentary Labour Party behind him are not of the same hue. They're very much Hillary Clinton Democrat style social democrats, really. I mean, that's where they reside, very centrist. And so I take all of these advances with a pinch of salt. It's a great personal victory and vindication for him, but let's see what happens in terms of his relationship with the Labour Party he's leading.
Listen, thanks so much. We've been joined by Robert Somynne, and he is a political reporter on UK and Scottish affairs, based out of Edinburgh, and your focus on foreign policy and Gulf analysis. That's really where I enjoy reading your work. Can you tell everyone how they can get up with you and where they can read some of your work?
I've got my Twitter handle is probably the easiest place to find me. Robert J. Somynne, Somynne. You can catch some of my opinion pieces on the UK website of The Guardian. I do some writing for websites such as Press TV and the New Arab. So just obviously, follow me, and I'd love to interact with people on issues such as foreign affairs and UK politics. So I look forward to hearing from all of your audience.
All right, Robert, I have to be corny real quick. So I wouldn't refer to you in a conversation between you and me. I wouldn't say governor to you. I would say bruv. Bruv?
All right, bruv.
Is it bruv? Or does anyone even say bruv in there, or is it just bruv?
It's just bruv.
Bruv.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, bruv. I appreciate it. We'll see you online. Robert Somynne, got to have him back, man. I think that was a spot-on analysis. You probably couldn't get that as good on the BBC.